In December 1999, the entire financial world turned on Warren Buffett. The cover of the biggest magazine in finance read 3 words: "What's wrong, Warren?" The greatest investor alive had just watched his company drop 23%, while everyone around him got rich off dot-com stocks. The press called him finished, out of touch, a relic. 3 months later, the Nasdaq crashed 77% and trillions of dollars vanished overnight. Buffett's fortune, however, kept compounding. Today, 99% of everything he has was built after his 50th birthday. He didn't get there with insider tips or family money. He got there with 10 truths about money that school was never designed to teach you. Here they are. Buffett grew up in a normal, average family. His father was a stockbroker who went through hard years, and the family bounced between Omaha and Washington. But young Warren started working before most kids knew what money was. At 6, he was knocking on doors, selling packs of chewing gum he bought wholesale from his grandfather. He bought his first stock at 11, filed his first tax return at 13, and deducted $35 for his bicycle because he used it on his paper route. By 15, he owned pinball machines placed inside barbershops across Omaha. These are more than just feel-good stories. They're the starting line for 10 truths about money that the entire education system skips entirely, because schools are built to produce employees, not investors. You keep telling yourself you'll start investing once the salary gets bigger or the debt clears up. That thinking costs more than any bad stock pick ever will. On March 11th, 1942, an 11-year-old kid in Omaha named Warren Buffett spent every cent he'd saved, $114.75, on 3 shares of a company called City Service Preferred. That was every dollar he'd earned from years of selling door-to-door and running errands. He'd found a book in the Omaha Public Library called 1,000 Ways to Make $1,000 that showed him how compound interest worked, and he wanted in. By 21, he had nearly $20,000. By 30, he crossed $1 million. That same move works on any income. Pick an amount you won't miss. $50, $30, even $10. Open a brokerage account this week and set up an automatic transfer on payday. And no, you don't wait for the right moment. There is no right moment. You don't put it off because you still have debt, and you don't tell yourself next year will be easier. It won't. Start now and let the compounding do what it does. There's a cost that almost nobody tracks. It's the cost of appearing successful before you actually are. The leased car, the upgraded apartment, the wardrobe that signals you're in the wrong tax bracket. In 1958, a 28-year-old Buffett bought a 5-bedroom house in Omaha, Nebraska for $31,500. He still lives there. His net worth passed $140 billion, and his address never changed. He drives a Cadillac he bought at a discount. He eats breakfast at McDonald's most mornings. He called the house his 3rd best investment, right behind his 2 wedding rings. You can run that same play on any salary. Route your next raise straight into savings or investments before you see it in your checking account. The apartment stays the same. The car stays the same. You don't buy the watch that tells your co-workers you're doing well. Let the gap between what you have and what you show stay wide and quiet. Credit cards feel like money. They aren't. They're loans running at 18 to 21% interest. That means every dollar sitting on your balance is costing you more than your savings will ever earn. A friend of Buffett's once came into some money and asked what she should do with it. His first question was whether she had credit card debt. She did, at about 18%. He told her to pay it off immediately because no investment he could find would beat that guaranteed return. The math backs him up. $10,000 at 18%, left alone for 10 years, becomes nearly $53,000 in debt. He's been blunt about it. If he personally borrowed money at those rates, he'd go broke. You're probably sitting on the same problem she had. Pull your credit card statements this week and sort by interest rate. Attack the highest one first with every spare dollar. And no, you don't open a brokerage account while carrying 20% debt. You stay away from investing in crypto while your Visa bill compounds. And you don't chase returns while interest is eating your paycheck. Compound interest works in both directions. Right now, you need to pick which one is running your account. 3 truths in. Start early, stay invisible, kill expensive debt. They all have one thing in common. None of them requires a single dollar more than you have right now. They only require you to stop doing what everyone around you is doing, and it gets quieter from here. Whenever you talk about money, it's always about what to buy. Almost nobody talks about what to learn. But the gap between people who build wealth and people who stay stuck is a knowledge gap, not an income gap. As a young man, Buffett was terrified of public speaking. He enrolled in a Dale Carnegie course and later called it the single best investment he ever made, more valuable than any stock he's ever bought. Today, he spends roughly 80% of his working day reading, 5 to 6 hours. Newspapers, annual reports, trade journals. When a group of Columbia University students asked him how to prepare for an investing career, he pointed to a stack of papers and told them to read 500 pages like that every day. He said knowledge builds up the same way compound interest does, and that almost nobody would actually do it. 500 pages is his version. Yours is much simpler. Spend 30 minutes a day improving your skills, or reading something that sharpens how you earn or how you think about money. Scrolling headlines doesn't count. Neither does that podcast you half listen to while cooking. If you forgot it by tomorrow, it wasn't reading. Pick something that compounds. I recommend these two books: The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham and The Great Crash of 1929 by John Kenneth Galbraith. When everyone around you is making money on something you don't understand, the pressure to jump in feels almost physical. That pressure has bankrupted more people than any crash. Through the late 1990s, Buffett refused to buy a single tech stock. The Nasdaq doubled, then doubled again. Venture capitalists poured 40% of their money into internet startups. Berkshire Hathaway's stock dropped, while everyone else was printing gains. By December 1999, the financial press was putting him on magazine covers asking what went wrong. His own shareholders questioned him. Berkshire was worth less than Yahoo on paper, a company earning a fraction of what Berkshire earned. Within months, the dot-com bubble burst. The Nasdaq lost 77%. Yahoo eventually sold for $4.5 billion. Berkshire is worth over $1 trillion. That same pressure is hitting your feed right now with whatever is trending. Before you put money into anything, explain the business to yourself in one sentence. If you can't, step back. The co-worker bragging about his returns probably can't explain the balance sheet either. If you can't define what you're buying, you're not investing. You're just gambling. And gambling at these stakes has a price. People spend years trying to figure out the perfect moment to buy, the perfect stock, the perfect entry point. Meanwhile, time is doing more work than any strategy ever could, and most people never let it run long enough. Here's the number that changes how you think about this. 99% of Buffett's wealth was built after his 50th birthday. He reached his first million at 30. He became a billionaire at 56. By his mid-90s, the number had passed 140 billion. The early decades laid the foundation, but the real explosion didn't happen until decades of growth had stacked up underneath it. Buffett himself has described his wealth as a product of compound interest and nothing more. The same math works whether you start with $100 or $100 million. Set up automatic investments and leave them alone. The less you touch them, the better they perform. Checking your portfolio every morning only slows you down. Selling because of a bad headline costs you years, not to mention the regret. The compounding only works if you stop interrupting it. Time is doing the work, so let it do its thing. Fear is the most expensive emotion in finance. When it spreads, people sell everything at once, and the prices of solid businesses drop to levels that make no rational sense. That's when the people who kept cash start buying. September 23rd, 2008. 2 days after Lehman Brothers collapsed and the entire banking system looked like it was going under, Buffett wrote a $5 billion check to Goldman Sachs. He bought preferred shares paying 10% annually. When Goldman redeemed those shares 3 years later, Buffett walked away with $3.7 billion in profit. While the rest of the world was panic selling, he was writing checks. Your version of that $5 billion check is a savings account you refuse to touch. Keep a separate fund that stays off limits during normal markets. When a crash comes, and it will, that's your buying window. That fund is not vacation money, and it's definitely not car repair money. It sits there until the moment everyone else is panicking, and then it moves into stocks and other assets. We've covered 7 truths so far, each one costing you nothing to run, and the last 3 are the ones that decide whether you end up wealthy or spend your life making someone else rich. There's a restlessness that ruins portfolios, a new stock every quarter, a new strategy every year. The wealthiest investors in history built their fortunes by making a handful of good decisions and then sitting still for decades. In 1988, the year after the stock market crashed, Buffett started buying shares of Coca-Cola. Over the next 6 years, he accumulated 400 million shares at a total cost of about $1.3 billion. He never sold a single one. Today, those shares pay Berkshire Hathaway over $800 million a year in dividends alone. That's more than $93,000 every hour around the clock from a single investment made 37 years ago. The same principle works with any amount. Pick one investment you actually understand, something boring, something you could explain to your mum, and just hold it. When it has a good quarter, leave it. When something flashier shows up in your feed, ignore it. The less you do, the more it grows. Just like Buffett, your biggest move should be you doing absolutely nothing. The instinct when something drops is to get out. When something rises a little, the instinct is to lock in what you have before it disappears. Both instincts are expensive. Buffett learnt this at 11 years old with his very first stock. He bought City Service Preferred at $38 a share. The price dropped to $27. He panicked but held on. When it recovered to $40, just above what he paid, he sold. He pocketed a tiny profit and felt relieved. The stock then climbed to $202 a share. He's called it one of the most important financial lessons of his life, and he learned it before he was 12. That lesson cost him $162 a share. You can learn it for free. Before you buy anything, write your selling rule down. Make it a condition, never a feeling. I sell if the business changes. I sell after 10 years. A dip is not a reason. And don't buy just because you're bored. Some stranger panicking on the internet is definitely not a reason. Relief is the most expensive feeling in investing. A paycheck keeps you alive, but it will never make you wealthy. That's the difference nobody explains when you're young. You trade time for income. Assets earn while you're asleep. Buffett's salary from Berkshire Hathaway has been $100,000 a year for decades. That's not where the money comes from. His wealth comes from the shares he owns. Berkshire owns dozens of companies, and those companies generate cash whether Buffett is in the office or not. He built a machine, and the machine keeps running without him. Berkshire is his version. Yours starts smaller. Pick one asset this year that doesn't need your time to grow. An index fund, a small rental, a side business you can eventually hand off. It doesn't matter which one, as long as it keeps earning when you stop showing up. Because your salary is just the clock running. The moment you walk away, it stops. But an asset doesn't stop. 10 truths. Every single one is something you can start running this week. None of them require more money than you already have. And you don't need permission, a degree, or a connection. Start early. Stay invisible. Kill expensive debt. Sharpen what you know. Only buy what you understand. Be patient. Move when others panic. Hold what works. Never sell out of fear. Own the asset, not just the job. The reason these aren't taught in school is simple. The system was built to produce workers who stay in the system forever, not people who go on their own path. If any of this shifted how you think about money, even one of the 10, there's a lot more to how the quietly wealthy actually operate. Most channels won't touch the rest of it. Every video on this channel is built to sharpen how you read the game that the people at the top are actually playing. If you want to become a top player, subscribe.